Krola, before we go into analysis, let's quickly go over what the numbers say, and then maybe we do some analysis, because it probably makes more sense for people to see the numbers first, right?
I mean, quite simply, this is a quarterly report. So at the end
Yeah.
of every quarter, they give an update. And the reason they show the prior quarters is you always want to compare this quarter to the quarter last year. So it means you're not messing up with, holidays in one season but not in the other season. Now, I mean, essentially what this was saying was that revenues were down 6%, and for Pearl Abyss overall, and operating profit down 60%. They then, Pearl Abyss Capital, which is this sort of mystery organization, comes in over the hill with extra profits to sort of boost it, but I think people really ignore it. I think overall, I mean, what's going on here? There are two main properties for Pearl Abyss. There's the Eve, which is perceived as a dull cash generative business, and there's another one that is just literally escaped my mind. Is it Crimson Desert or Black?
So Black Desert is the if you go here and look at the revenue breakdown, you've got Black Desert, which is the big game that Pearl Abyss has. At Eve is the smaller part of that, and Crimson Desert is the game that they're developing right now, that's coming out soon, TM, but that they've just delayed.
Yeah, so this is the big issue. This is the big issue.
So if we look at revenue overall, first of all, operating revenue quarter over quarter is down, as Korda just said. So it was rising all year, but then it dropped down quite sharply in Q1 of 2023. They do a little bit of the update right here. By the way, good to see you, and Mokem as well. Both of you, thank you for resubbing. Really appreciate it. If we're looking at the operating revenue, you can see that here that it did drop down quite sharply after rising steadily over the last 4 quarters. Typically, Black Desert and EVE Online, they are both older games. They're both older games, and so this right here always depends, or often depends on is content getting released or not. And overall, you wouldn't expect these numbers to rise sharply, because they haven't released any new games lately at all. What we do see here is the operating profit that dropped down pretty sharply. We see here the net profit in Q4 22, which we now believe is the $50 million write down on the goodwill that we covered last week from CCP, right, Kroda? We still think that, yeah?
Absolutely positive.
Yeah. So this is a 100 billion kwon net loss in the last quarter. And so what they're basically saying is this quarter they returned back to net profits, but obviously last quarter was a one-time write down here. Let me see here. Oz, can you make your guests louder? Yeah, I can actually. Give me a second. Up. There you go. I made Crota louder now. So now, Crota, you can't yell anymore. Not that you ever do. Xdu says PA has been delaying a lot of content for BDO and other games as well. They're not on a good path. No, they're not. And their stock price also, if you look at, I think the past year, their stock price has given up about 25%. And after this last week's earnings report here, the quarterly earnings report, the stock also dropped quite a few percentage points. So their Pearl Abyss is not doing great, especially not compared to other companies in the market.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, the market talk after the results was getting a little bit concerned that the revenues were beginning to, start to look quite close to costs. As you sort of say, the next expansion for Black Desert has been delayed. And if they don't get it out, I think there'll be a bit more concern, because these profits are going one way at the moment. So they really need to get it out quite quickly.
Yeah. And I think what they were kind of hanging on to is that this 11% net profit number right here is not, that's not bad. Historically speaking, that's okay if you get 9 billion quant profit out of 85 billion revenue, then that's all right, especially comparing to the history. But overall, they just haven't had a good year.
Yeah, that 9 billion. I mean, we should really look at the operating profit, which is 1 billion.
Yeah,
That the
yeah,
extra uplift of 8 or so billion came from Perlibis Capital, which, as they said, released some gains. We're not quite sure what that is. It's some investment vehicle or something. So it's
yeah.
certainly not the main business. So it's the operating profit we should all have an eye on, and that that's not looking the most healthy at the moment.
Yeah. So operating profit, for everyone who's not into finance, operating profit would be the day-to-day business, would be the money that they're making from their games. So all of the revenues from the games minus all the expenses from their games, that would be considered operating profit for them. Net profit, you add anything from financial activities. So if they buy or sell stock in other companies, if they have investments that if they're dealing with crypto, that's all in the net profit. So they did pull most of their profit out of that. If we're looking at revenue by IP, then we can see that if you go in Korean won, the revenue from EVE Online was the lowest it has been in a year and a half. And as Crota said earlier, you need to kind of compare this to the first quarter of 22. So you need to compare the 16.9 to the 18.2. Although it's very hard to do that because you've had a sub price increase, you have different expansions coming out of different times. So the quarter over quarter relevance here is not like in a lot of other businesses. It is kind of still comparing apples to oranges. But Crota, you did something on your website. You did you converted it to US dollars, and because a lot of this has to do with currency fluctuations, and the US dollar versus the euro versus the Korean won has been fluctuating wildly, and that has falsified a lot of these numbers, because you have to imagine Perlibis and CCP, they earn a lot of their revenue from in US dollars and euros, but then they do the financial reporting in Korean won. And so if that currency exchange rate fluctuates by a lot, then that falsifies the numbers a lot. It's not an actual representation of how well they're doing operatively. So tell us what you did here in this table, Crota.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, the one currency that EVE Online doesn't play in is Korean won. We pay dollars and euros and pounds, etc., and Australian currency. So I mean, Noisy Gamer tries to do a similar thing. All I did was I took the average exchange rate for every quarter. Well, actually, no, I took the US dollar Korean won exchange rate at the beginning of a quarter and the end of the quarter, and took the average and converted the quarterly numbers that Perlibis show. So and that's what I've shown there. So I've tried to convert every quarter's revenue to US dollars, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. Because I mean, what it shows is that quarter 1 23 to quarter 1 22, revenues fell 13%. So that's kind of in line with what they did for the full year 22 versus full year 21. So not a surprise. I think what is interesting with that comparison, though, is this quarter had the 30% price rise in it, and quarter 1 2022 didn't. Now, if you then assume, okay, revenues are down 13%, prices up 30%, you've got to make some heroic assumptions on mix between Omega and player subscriptions.
Yeah.
But if you assume they haven't moved, then player numbers have fallen by about 35 to 45%.
A number of accounts.
Yes. Yeah, yes, exactly. So what I'm thinking here is, does that mean that, somebody with 4 accounts went down to 2 accounts? I mean, so players didn't necessarily fall, but number of accounts almost certainly did.
Almost certainly. I think anecdotally we all know that is what happened, because we all probably know people that just reduced the amount of accounts that they were running after the sub price increase, and So this is to underline what you said. This is a back of the napkin kind of thing. This is not scientific at all, right? Because there's a lot of things in that calculation where you could go left or go right and make the number move by 5 or 10%. But overall, I think it's quite clear that no matter how you look at it, almost certainly the number of accounts went down significantly.
Yep, you've got to think about they've done a lot of deals on Omega recently.
Yeah,
which you can sort of see people actually buying Omega instead of a subscription for a month. So you can sort of see that affecting the numbers. So I'm probably giving you quite a very bad take, but directionally, absolutely, I think we're correct. Player accounts are clearly down at least 30%, I would say.
And I mean, we still don't know exactly what the strategy was behind the sub price increase, right? I mean, we don't we assume that it was they were trying to recover increased costs, et cetera, right? But in the end, I think what these numbers have shown that quite clearly they did not increase revenue via that strategy. The only thing they did probably was hurt their revenue overall. Any way you look at it, I don't think they can be happy with the results that they're seeing.
No, I mean, my best guess is the Korean management in Pearl Abyss in South Korea suddenly started paying attention to EVE Online and panicked. And the only lever they could push in a hurry was price. Mm-hmm. And I think what you've done now is rebase the account numbers. Because there is good news at the end of this. I mean, I love this game. I'm not trying to do it down. I think the good news is if you do compare Q1 2023 to Q4 2022, now you'd normally expect Q1 to be down on Q4 because Q4 is the holiday season. Actually, and you convert that into US dollars, you actually show a 3% increase in revenues in Q1 2023. And that therefore clearly shows that account numbers have trickled back up again. So we are going in the right direction. So I think if you want to put a positive spin on this, which I'm trying to, I think that the 30% price rise shook down the account base probably more than they thought. But they are now at least sort of going back up again.
Nero Prime, thank you for 22 months, man. Appreciate it. So revenue by region hasn't changed all too much. You can see I think Asia losing the rest of Asia, non-Korean Asia losing a lot of revenue that must have to do with China, right? Typically because they're such a big chunk of that, and then mobile revenue increased a lot, but that's just probably because that's rather not mobile revenue increasing, it's PC revenue dropping. That's probably more of the reason for that.
Yes, I mean, I think when you start to look at these numbers by region, numbers by platform, EVE begins to disappear at that point. It's much more pushed by Black Desert.
Interestingly, they Pearl Abyss. Pearl Abyss, people are talking about the raffle. Yeah, somebody won the raffle earlier. Whoever won the raffle, send me a message on Discord or on Twitch, and I will send you either a skin code or a 3-day Omega code. But I'm going to restart the raffle, and you guys can jump in again. Here you go. And Sledgeheart, thank you for the Prime sub. Appreciate it, dude. Welcome to the community. The new raffle is up, everyone. So what Pearl Abyss does is they always just bring 2 bullets, right? 2 bullets about what happened this quarter and 2 bullets what is going to happen next quarter. So I always find it interesting to look at it from a company perspective. What's the what are the topics that are on their mind or the topics that they want to communicate? And the first one is Chinese New Year event, an improved factional warfare update. I mean, the improved factional warfare update actually was in Q4. It wasn't even in Q1. So this is just maybe they did some tweaks, but the big message there is a bit old. And then they bring up the big, Andreessen Horowitz 40 million Web3 game investment, which, clearly that's what investors want to see, because investors are mostly not, they're not looking at it from a gamer perspective. They're trying to make money, and so they want these companies to invest in the latest trendy topic. And so it's not surprising that they named that here, but it's a little disheartening anyway, because I know I speak for most of you that this is not a popular feature in the Eve community. And then we have the Outlook page for the next quarter, and all they have there is the next expansion. Interestingly, they call it expansion pack, which is just a translation. It's just a weird translation, but yeah. But you can see they focus very much on Black Desert, and during the investor call, a big focus was on the delay in Crimson Desert, which is the Black Desert follow-up that they've been developing for a few years, and that is delayed again, I think. And so people are kind of worried. What I want to do real quick is look at this as well. So this right here is the Perlibis stock, and the Perlibis stock price. And this was announced on May 11, and you can see, since then it's lost significantly. Right, it lost 5% of share price last week. If you look at the last month, they've lost 8%. Last 6 months is okay because they've been up and down a lot. Year to date, they're actually up just because last year was terrible. But if you look at the last 52 weeks, so if you look at the last year, then they're down 25%. So not a great. Not a great situation to be in right now, but they're hoping on the new CCP developments and the new and the new Perlibis games, like what is that game called, Doke V, I think, and Crimson Desert to be blockbusters. That's what they're hoping on.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's a few things to say about this. I mean, firstly, almost every business that benefited during the pandemic, and games companies benefited because everybody was at home, have unwound that benefit. I can only think of one or two who haven't. So, all their share prices have come off. The second thing to say is the market is not pricing this business as if it's in trouble. Mm-hmm. So the market is pricing disappointment. Mm-hmm.
You're breaking up, Crota, but I think I know what you're saying. So this is not the look of a stock that where investors are scared for it to be going down, to be going out of business, right? This is punishing some bad quarters, but it's not a concerned market. Especially if you look at the last 5 years. I mean, they were in obscurity. Then this is COVID, but they've basically given back all of the gains that they made during COVID as a game company. So a lot of this was just being pushed due to the video game hype during the COVID pandemic. All right, Crota, I don't know if you're still there or if we lost you, but
I'm probably still here, but I've finished.
You're here, yeah. So you all go if you like this sort of stuff. You can read the sort of analysis we just did in Crota's blog, Markets for ISK. I'll post it in chat again. And you can also read his his write up. Oh yeah, he has a transcript here as well. So if you want to read the transcript of what the CEO and the CFO talk about from Pearl Abyss, it's quite boring because it's very scripted, as I said in the beginning. But it's still an interesting read if you want to see what kind of questions are asked. They're never about EVE Online, almost never. Okay, Kurta, thanks for stopping by, and we'll pivot over to market talk right now.